Welcome to GT Radio on the Geek Therapy Network. Here at Geek Therapy, we believe that the best way to understand each other and ourselves is through the media we care about. I am one of your co-hosts, Mark, and with me is my doppelganger, my older version, Josué Cardona.
I don't like the way you said older and emphasized it.
Well, see, you do it to Lara, so I felt it was only fair to do it to you.
Gotcha. Just you and me today.
It is the two Amigops back at it again. I don't even remember. We were talking about this before, but I seriously don't even remember the last time it was just the two of us.
I don't know.
Well, anywhoozles. So over the past couple of weeks, I was getting caught up. I was kind of wrapping up the 6th season of My Hero Academia. And as I was watching the 6th season, I started pulling out this main theme, and I thought it was kind of interesting for us to kind of talk about, and that is reaching out and sort of learning and understanding when and how to sort of reach out for help, especially when you're not quite sure how to do so, or you have always been in an environment where you really couldn't. And so now you're trying to figure that out for the first time, and learning to kind of turn to others for support. So
yeah,
you haven't, yeah, right. You haven't seen season 6, right?
No. But I mean, you can.
Yeah. So I'll do some light spoilers for those that haven't watched it. I'll try to keep them very light, very brief. Obviously, the manga's been out for a little bit, but if you're like me and only really watch the anime, I'll try to keep it light and breezy here. So if you're familiar with My Hero, you know that the main character, Midoriya, he has the quirk One for All, and over time he starts sort of gaining a better grasp of the power, and eventually he starts unlocking the other quirks from the previous users, and he's able to start utilizing them. So now essentially he can have up to 7 quirks with him. And so obviously it kind of builds up to this final battle with One for All and All for One. And at the end of the 5th season, you start seeing that it seems like Shigaraki is going to be the new All for One. And so the 6th season kind of kicks off with a battle between the two. And Deku, who is being classic Deku, realizes after the fight that just by him being around everybody, he's putting their lives in danger. So he decides to work with the pro heroes and becomes almost like a vigilante to lure out All for One. But also he's effectively trying to do this on his own. So he's nonstop. He's barely eating, barely sleeping. He's constantly moving, taking out villains wherever he sees them, or bad guys, whatever, trying to protect everybody. But this obviously wears him down because he's trying to do this all on his own. And he even turns away from All Might and starts kind of branching out on his own. And his classmates don't take this well. They're like, yo, you shouldn't try to do this all on your own, because you've been teaching us that as heroes we need to meddling, especially when you're not needed or when you don't need to, is like the essence of being a hero. So they try to go and knock some sense into him, and it's this them trying to match his speed and trying to go at the same pace as him to show him that they're not going to turn their backs on him, and they're not going to become reliant on him, because they don't want to be reliant on him. They want to work with him and overcome this issue in this fight together as a team and as friends. And this is where Deku, who's always tried to be there for others, is now learning that he needs help himself. And there is a particular quote from Uraraka. She says to a crowd of people when they do bring him back to the safe spot, that just because he has a special power doesn't mean that he is special. He's still just a kid. He could have this special power. He can do all these amazing things, but that doesn't make him special. He's not invincible. He's just a kid who's doing the best that he can to try to bring back the peace. And I thought that was it's a very deep, heartfelt moment. And it just like it really resonated with me because I know when I was growing up, I had a lot of those same struggles of like learning when to reach out for help. I was the one that people would come to talk about their problems, work through these things, whatever it is that was going on. And I didn't know how to reach out for help myself. So that's why I thought this would be a really cool and interesting topic to kind of explore and see what other forms of media kind of touch on this.
Yeah. Well, that whole, I don't know how light and breezy that was, but definitely the character of Midoriya / Deku, he pushes himself so much in the series, right? Like he's got, I mean, he starts with no powers and right, and early on the show, I mean, he's got scars and tons of broken bones, and he's always pushing himself way too hard. And it's almost ironic that like the only reason he's able to keep doing what he's doing is because of that nurse who's quirk, right? Can heal him constantly, but also his power, right? Like his quirk, the All for One, is all about like this group of people coming together, and they're all in a way like not just giving him power, but also supporting him in different ways as the show goes on, right? It's like you're building off of what all these people did before you, and there's a part of them in you. So you're not even alone in that sense. But then you're saying that later on, he gets to a point where he feels like he has to do everything on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But then, so you're saying that he gets to a point where he starts realizing that he needs help, but he doesn't know how to go about asking for it.
No, he's more so like his classmates sort of show him that it's okay to need help. Like they're saying like you do not have to do this all on your own because you want to protect us. We don't want your protection. We want to be by your side. And so this is sort of like him realizing when he needs the help.
Well, like they want to help him, but he doesn't want their help.
Yeah, because he wants to protect them. He wants to try to be the standalone hero that like, no, I'm going to protect you. And they're like, dude, no, we don't want that. You're our friend. Yeah. And so it's him sort of starting to realize that like, okay, this is the time when I need help because I can't do this on my own. And I mean, I'm gonna guess that because right now season 6 is over, we're waiting for season 7. I'm gonna imagine that season 7 is going to be a lot more of that. Like, okay, like he's gonna start learning to rely on his friends and his classmates to sort of help him out. Yeah. But I don't know too much about that. I haven't gotten that far in the manga yet.
So how did this resonate with you then? Again, what did it bring up for you?
So like I was mentioning earlier, like with my own struggles with learning about when I need help and how to even reach out for that help, that kind of resonated with me pretty strongly. And actually in my therapy today, I was sort of reminiscing and recollecting on like what brought me to therapy in the first place. And I mentioned that like, it's because I realized that this was the time when I needed help. I realized the when, and by starting therapy, I was learning the how. So there was just things going on in my life that made me realize that this was the time that I needed to start reaching out for help. And then over the course of a few years now, I have learned how to reach out for that help when I need that help or that extra support.
Like how? What did it for you?
Like what caused me to realize when I needed to
Yeah,
reach out?
there's a line, right? Like
Hmm.
you crossed, right? There was like a door you opened. How did you get from not knowing how to ask for help? Like, what were the first things that you started learning that
Mm.
helped you?
Yeah. So I think what kind of caused me to step over that line was I had some close I had a small support network. People that I could really truly rely on. I didn't really trust a whole lot of people. I kind of kept a lot of people at arm's length or even longer. And the few people that I did keep close to me, I started realizing were pulling away because of my own tendencies and my own unhealthy behaviors. And so, because I was at risk of losing the only real support that I felt I had, I realized that there was something that needed to change. And I kind of figured, like, well, I'm not going to ask them to change because that wasn't the mindset that I had. So I kind of felt like it was a me thing. As Taylor Swift would say, I'm the problem. It's me. I had to do the callback. Moving moving forward, I realized that okay, it's probably me. I need to make the change. So that's when I started looking for therapists, and what started me on that. And then over the course of the first year of therapy, I started learning when to start recognizing when I was starting to hit low points, and when I realized and was starting to recognize when those points were coming, or when I started noticing a dip in my mood, to um, one, develop more healthy coping skills to kind of deal with those mood sets, especially when my old coping strategies were becoming ineffective because they were overused, or they just weren't as effective anymore. But also learning to be more open and allowing more people to sort of come in that wanted to be a part of my inner circle. Um, because I often kept people at arm's length because either I didn't trust them or I didn't want to burden them with my problems. But then I started to realize that no, the people that want to be there for me are going to be there. And it's important to be able to turn to them when I need that support, because they're there, they're offering it. I'm not trying to force them to help me. They're willingly saying, "Hey, no, please let me help." Um, and then, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a work in progress. It'll always be a work in progress, but I know for me, I have really pushed myself, and I think I've come a long way since when I first started therapy. Um, but this whole season was like caused me to have that callback to the beginning
Yeah.
stages, and I was like, huh, I really resonate with this. This really reminds me a lot of me at some point,
Yeah.
and now here I am. I've gone through all these changes since I started, and like the drastic difference between me then versus me now is unreal.
So, there's a good tactic in therapy where it's like, what would you say to a friend that's going through the same thing that you're going
Mm-hmm.
through, or like what advice would you give them? So I'm curious if when you're watching the show, you're like, Deco, you idiot, like
Mm-hmm.
stop doing that. And then like, oh wait, that was me.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple of moments like that. It's even in earlier in the season,
Yeah.
earlier in the series too. There have been moments where I'm like, dude, why? Why are you doing these things? And I'm like, oh wait a minute,
Yeah.
that's me. That's me.
Yeah. It's I've always I think I'm better at it too, but it was really hard for me to ask for help. I was gonna say no, I think I've been cured, but I haven't. I haven't. Um, like I can only do so much now. I think I've gotten a lot better, but like I won't ask for too much help. So
Yeah.
like one time I had to like borrow money from my sister, and I asked for her like the bare minimum. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
because like I want to go too far. Recently, I asked you to come to my house and drive a pretty long way to do something at my house because I wasn't here. And that was a big deal for me to ask for help. But the thing that pushed me over was that I had someone else come to my house twice already, and I couldn't bring myself to ask them a third time. So I was like, it was like spreading it a little thinner. And I was like, and it was you because I trust you, you know, like mm-hmm. I don't think like other than the two of you here, there's nobody else I would have asked. And so that's a huge improvement for me, like to just ask that. And actually my the other person who helped out, she offered when I was traveling. Mm-hmm. And so that made it a lot easier because I never would have asked had she not offered first. But since I was already, you know, getting help, and then it sucks because then I feel like I owe people, you know. I went to a meditation retreat a long time ago, and one thing that they said was that it is, I forgot the exact wording, but the lesson was the importance of accepting charity. And so for these meditation retreats, there were 10 days, and you don't pay anything at all, because that's part of the experience is accepting the charity of others. So once it's done, if you want, you can pay something, anything, whatever you want, so that it supports other people in the future who want to do it. But you don't have to. So when you get there, it's people are just providing you with lodging and teaching and food, and you don't, and there was something that was a huge, that was a moment for me, like that idea. Because the other day I went to a restaurant, went to Luminati's for the first time.
The first time?
The first time. I'm a Giordano's person. If you're not from Chicago, none of this might make sense.
Oh my goodness!
It's pizza. We're talking pizza, but went for the first time, and and the waitress brought the pizza, and she says, "Do you mind if I serve you the slice?" And that's the first time I've ever had anybody ask it that way. And the truth is, I do mind being waited on. I do not like it. Mm-hmm. Even at a restaurant, even though that's a person's job, I do not like it. But even when I was a teenager, like, again, like, I don't know, this is between me and my therapist to figure out exactly what this is. Maybe you can help me. But it's like, I didn't want my mom to wash my clothes. Like, I didn't want anybody to like do stuff for me. I got to an age when I was a teenager, I was like, no, like nobody do nothing for me. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where that came from exactly. But even now, I do not like being served. And just so she asked me that, and I didn't say, yeah, actually, I prefer you not to serve me. But what I did, I asked her, does that happen often? How often do people tell you that they don't want to be served? She said, it happens surprisingly more than you'd think. It's like, huh. Okay. So, I mean, again, is being served the same thing as being helped? I think it's related. You know, I think there's some, I think it falls into the category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like lots of people deal with that, right? And I don't know exactly where that comes from, but I've gotten better at it by just learning, like you said, like or like the example of Deku, just learning that what is it? How would I frame how I learned it? I think I wasn't willing to even try, and that meditation retreat experience kind of forced me to be in that situation of being taken care of. I think that's kind of where it comes from. Like, I don't think I know how to be taken care of. and it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but eventually I started realizing that kind of like it's almost insulting to the person who's offering help to decline it, like because they're being kind and they're offering you something with, right, like there's no malintent, there's no there's they generally like want to be helpful, or just want to share something. And that was another thing that I started thinking, like they're offering me something and I say no, just like kind of offended.
Like, oh,
And
really? I just offered some help, and you're just gonna spit on my shoes? All right, that's
yeah. Just and any kind of thing, right? It could just be hospitality, but it could also be like real help.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that changed it for me too. But recently I had a conversation with my older sister, and I was telling her that I don't remember. I think it was like a financial advisor or something, like consultant or something, that I contacted. Because I'm not great with my finances. And my older sister says, well, but don't go paying somebody for something that's just common sense. And I told her, look, I am old enough to have finally learned that it is so much easier to not do things on my own, to have someone else who can help, whether we're paying our therapist or whether a friend is helping us out, right? It doesn't matter how it is, it's just easier. Like there's no reason to go through so much pain or even discomfort, like why when you're not hurting, like you're hurting yourself, and then you think you're hurting someone else because they're helping you, but you're not. Like, yeah. So I mean, I think it's complicated when you're in that mode on how to get out of it. But I've also had stories that kind of reflected back at me my experiences with that.
What kind of stories?
So the one that really got to me, and again, like this is Geek Therapy 101, right? Like you love my hero, so it makes sense that this, right? You already had an affinity for it, and suddenly something happened. You had an emotional reaction, right? There was some resonance there.
And it's not like, the only story, too.
No, yeah. But so for me, like I love Batman stories, and there was a run called technically it wasn't Batman Incorporated. It was before Batman Incorporated. He got in a fight. I think it was Infinite Crisis, I believe. And at the end of it, Darkseid hits him with something, and everybody thinks he's dead, but he gets like sent back in time. And it's actually a really cool story where you see him like in prehistoric times, in the Old West, like you see him across time, trying to get back. And like he's a Batman in each of those eras. It's pretty cool. But while he's gone, everybody's taking care of the city. And then it gets like the whole point of that story, once he comes back, is that he finally comes to the conclusion that like, oh yeah, like this job is really hard. I try to take care of this whole city by myself. And he has this whole Bat family, right, that is developed. There's Batwoman, and there's Batgirl, and there's Nightwing, and there's Robin, and there's a few others. Like they've been inspired by him. They want to help him. They want to fight by his side, right? Very similar. And it's finally like when he comes to that conclusion, he has this really cool scene where he calls everybody to the Batcave and tells them that like he's had this realization. And of course, everybody's like, duh, Bruce, like finally. Yeah. Like it took you long enough. Like we're literally out there with you, like we're doing the same thing. It's about time we work together. But it was like the obviousness of it, right? It was like the fact that he had to go through so much to come to the realization that, oh yeah. And then he takes it to the extreme because then that's when he starts Batman Incorporated. And basically he starts like recruiting people from around the world, and there's like bat people everywhere, and he's got it's pretty cool. But that was the one of the first stories that really did it for me.
Yeah. No, that's you said a lot, and and my goodness, like when you were talking about like the retreat, I don't know if I could handle that. Like going there for 10 days and then not paying anything or not being required to have to pay for it just sounds so like such an alien concept to me.
It was also a silent retreat, so you couldn't complain to anybody.
Oh my goodness. Like yeah, I remember earlier, like a lot earlier in the in this podcast series here, I remember you talking about that retreat. I think it was when you just went on it too. And sort of talking about like the things that you've learned through it. And I don't think you've ever mentioned the fact that like it was like talking about accepting charity and like having it be paying really only what you want, but knowing that what you're paying is going to help other people to do the retreat for free. And I can't, I would probably look at them and be like, this doesn't feel right to me. I feel like I need to compensate in some way, shape, or form.
Suspicious. What's happening?
It's just like, this is a cult or something. But no, the Batman story is, that's such an interesting story, and I really wish I was into comics more, because I'm sure there's so many stories that I could probably really resonate with, and I'm sure I would have a much bigger library to kind of pull from. My things only really stem from video games and cartoons and movies and things like that, which I know are still just as great, but like a story like that and like having to go through all these absurdities of being an old Western Batman just to come to the realization like, oh yeah, help is actually not that bad. It just, I mean, that's so fun. I honestly think that's such a fun storyline.
It's pretty cool.
And, you know, to kind of go off of that, because I don't know when Here Comes a Thought is ever going to come back. Whenever it does. But even with Steven Universe, like Steven Universe Future, like that's another one where I really kind of strongly started resonating with it, especially Future. More so, a lot more with the trauma stuff, but also that idea of, hey, it's okay to need help. Like, you don't have to put the whole weight of the world on your shoulders, and sort of push yourself to a breaking point. Because that's, again, something that I did where I brought myself to my breaking point multiple times for the sake of other people. But also being in the same way of like, I didn't want anybody's help because I didn't want to burden other people with my problems. They were my problems. So why should I burden other people with it? So kind of going with that idea with Steven Universe Future as well, of like having people sort of come together to sort of knock some sense into you, or knock some just to kind of get you to kind of realize, hey, wait a minute, you're fighting this hard for it because you genuinely want to help and you're offering that support. And I think like when you're able to make a realization like that, it is such a life-changing moment. Like, I think when I made that realization that there were people that were genuinely fighting to be there for me and to be at my side through the good times and the bad, it was like a completely new feeling to me, a feeling I had never really felt before, but one that I was eternally grateful for. and it's one now that I try my best to kind of instill into others. Honestly, I think now I kind of overdo it because I'm at that point too where we're like, oh, you want to help me? Perfect. Please come help me do this thing because it'll be so much easier that you do it. Like I have to get my brakes changed. I'm having my dad do that because Lord knows it's much easier to have somebody else that knows how to do it and that's offering the help than for me to try to learn and how to do it by myself and cause myself an infinite times bigger amount of stress and potentially ruin my car because I probably would if I tried to do it by myself.
Yeah. My mom would offer me money, and I would always be like, no, mom, it's okay. And one day she looks at me and says, I'm just trying to help. You don't know how much it hurts me when you don't accept my help. And like, I don't think she'd ever said those words to me. And afterwards I was like, that's why I mentioned it before. It's like, wait a minute, it's not just about me. Like there's also something about that rejection, like it's more than just, again, we're talking about a mother to her son, right? So there are certain relationships, right, that are where this applies to, and I don't think it applies to others, but like she was so invested in it, kind of like, probably the friend version is like, these people are fighting to help me. What the hell? Right?
Yeah.
But my mom would be like that. And so I just started like accepting her help and just always saying thank you. And recently my two sisters, they'll be like, mommy, no. Like, don't, please, mommy, no. And then I would see my mom get upset and I'd be like, just take the money. And then later, like, you're already buying her like food and all this other stuff. Then just use that money and bring it back. Just like just take it. Just take it. So it's like a two-way thing as well. Like I think it's part of building relationships. It's that, you can give, like you got to let people give you as well, because that's, I don't know. Yeah. It's just a part of it.
Yeah, I never really thought much about the rejection piece, and it's kind of weird that I wouldn't really think about it because I know for me, like if I offered and was really trying to extend my support or offer help for somebody and they reject me or turn me down, I would feel that rejection because I know I'm more sensitive to rejection, so I would feel that hard.
Yeah.
But I never would stop to think about what I was doing to other people by rejecting their help and saying, no, I'm fine. I got this.
Now you know.
And now I am very much aware. I'm like, oh yeah, that doesn't feel so good. And I'm aware because I've gone through it so many times. And I think I've had a lot of similar instances like that where like I've had grandparents try to give me money and I'm like, no. But especially with the way my family kind of grew up, I was always kind of taught that like you don't say no, you just say thank you, and then you kind of move on. And so then I've learned to kind of sometimes take whatever it is that they're offering, whether it's money or something else, and in turn I would find a way to kind of bring it back. Or I think this would also kind of distort my view of it because like how you said, like you always felt like you would owe them. So even though they're offering something, in my mind I'd be like, okay, now what can I do that to return the favor for them? Because I would just make the assumption that like they're gonna want something in return. Maybe not now, maybe not in a little while, but at some point down the line, they're gonna be like, "Hey, remember when I did this thing for you? Like, do you think you could help me out right now?" Because
that's an assumption,
and that's an assumption that I would just have with everybody. And so that's why I would always kind of carry that notion of like, "Oh, you're offering me something? What do you want? Like, or I would accept it and then be like, okay, now I feel like I have to do something to
Yeah.
return that favor, so I don't feel like I owe you anything.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so learning to kind of get over that piece of it was one of those things that during therapy I spent some time on. I was like, gotta learn to just accept the help for what it is and know that I don't owe them anything. So even if they were to come and ask me down the line, if it was something that I was able to do, then of course, then I would be more than happy to. But if it was something that was a little out of my reach or just something that I can't do it, don't feel bad
Yeah.
because they offered out of the kindness of their heart. At least that's what I would like to hope, and not with them doing it simply because they're like, oh no, I'm gonna call in that favor.
Yeah. Yeah. Like all these beliefs that we have in our heads that aren't true, right? These weird assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
I I think I've gotten over the guilt part a lot. I think that part I've resolved.
Yeah.
I remember I was living in Philadelphia at the time. I had a friend. She took me out for my birthday, and it was the most expensive meal I'd ever had in my life. And the whole time I just felt uncomfortable. And then later on, I got her like a gift certificate to a spa or something. Like I tried to match it almost dollar for dollar because I felt like yeah, like I was indebted to her, or like it just wasn't fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that she expected anything in return, and I never did back then. It was all in my head, and then I guess that probably made it weird, right? But then, like fast forward, I don't know, 20 years, right? I moved over here to Chicago, and early on, a friend of mine like was like, "Oh, let's go somewhere," and she paid like $120 for both of us, which some people might not think that that's a lot, but I think that's a lot for like just. It was like there's a Starbucks here and has a tour or something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
The big one.
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And so instead of like that other example and just being uncomfortable and feeling weird about how much it cost and all that, for this one I just tried to live it up. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like because I think a big part of people wanting to help is that it's not just like they're invested in what you're trying to do as well. Right? So then it's like it kind of becomes our thing. Right? Like I had a small part of that. Like you see all the credits in the movie, right? Like you feel good that you're one of those things at the end. That you were a part of that. And so it doesn't matter how small the piece, it's like then they're a part of it too. And yeah, so I mean that part of it is has been hard, but I'm realizing as we're talking about this, I keep thinking of so many stories now where this is a theme. But yet I feel like this is the first conversation I've ever had about this with someone, like in so much detail.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is that it's because people don't want to talk about this. And so they don't. And yet in stories, right? Like there's so many stories where there's that person who doesn't want to ask for help. Like
Mm-hmm.
Frodo, share the load, right? It's like, why are you suffering? There's like an established team, but there's this person that, just wants to go off on their own. And once, the team starts working together, they're able to accomplish the goal, right? Like that character, that like lone wolf is just always there in so many different stories.
Yeah, I mean, look at Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is a cautionary tale for sure.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Not always though. Right? Like I think like in the Miles Morales game,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
once
100%.
once he starts being a mentor and stuff like that, right? Like it's different. But lots of times he does, right? Like there's so many stories where he's like, I have to do this on my own. I can't involve anybody else. And I think that's also, I hadn't thought about this before, but it's a little different from like the secret identity thing, right? Like a lot of heroes, like they can't tell their family, like, they don't want to. Also that idea of like, no, I'm putting their life in danger, or just, you don't want to stress them out. But it's like, you don't know what they're going to say or do. You have no idea if that outcome is true, but we think that we're going to hurt people or put some kind of burden on them. So, yeah. I feel like I'm having that realization now. Like, I've never had this conversation with anybody really. And yet we both we're resonating 100%. We both,
well,
we both know.
I would certainly hope that we're resonating with the same person. So
just validating it one more time. And then at first I was like, oh, I can't remember too many stories, but it's it's so many. It's just that character is always there. So I think there's a lot of stories that can help people tap into that and start that conversation.
Yeah. And I'm even sort of thinking back because since, like I said, since I caught up with season 6, I thought season 6 of My Hero was so good. I'm going back and now I'm binge watching all of it to kind of rewatch the whole series again, and I'm sort of seeing that theme in Izuku throughout the whole thing of he's pushing himself so hard, and they put it under the guise of he wants to catch up, he has to work 10 times as hard as everyone else because he's workless for most of his life, and now he has one for all. But you definitely see that characteristic in him of no, I need to do this, I have to push myself, I have to put myself there, because if I want to be the greatest hero that can save everyone and protect everyone, then I need to carry this burden by myself. And then with the secret of One for All and trying to keep that a secret and protecting All Might, that adds a whole other layer. But I just thought of another anime that does this.
I just want to mention for listeners that you've called him Izuku, Midoriya, and Deku.
I called them all of his names. Yep.
Yeah. Just it's all the same person.
They're all the same person. Deku's the hero name. Izuku is his first name. Midoriya is his last name. Yeah. But I'm actually thinking of another great anime that I've watched that I haven't finished, actually. It's the one anime that I've watched it, I loved it, never finished it. Haikyuu. And Haikyuu is, yes, volleyball, my volleyball boys. And this is in a different way with what's his name? I'm gonna confuse the names here.
Izuku, Midoriya, Deku.
Yeah, right. Okay, the first name's Tobio. I remember that. I remember his name is Tobio. Oh, Kageyama. Okay. That's it. He in the beginning of the series is characterized as this king of the court because he's very good in terms of the mechanics of volleyball, scary good as a setter, and because he's so good, he plays to his own style and expects everyone to kind of listen to him because he knows the game the best. He knows how to play it. He knows how to win, blah, blah, blah. And people don't like that because he sucks the fun out of the game. So he feels like he has to do all of this on his own. It's him, and he doesn't want to have to rely on other people. But then over time, he learns to sort of rely on his teammates, knowing that his teammates are going to be there to pick up where he can't do anything. And especially with Hinata and them developing as a duo, knowing that hey, he's my partner, he can keep up with me. No matter what I do, he will always be there to hit the ball. There's literally nothing that's going to stop them. That's just another story of learning about when to kind of reach out and accept the help, especially when it's being aggressively thrown in your face. With Hinata, he will aggressively throw his support in his face and be like, you need to work this out with me because I want us to be the best.
Also, they're already a team, right?
Yeah.
It's a trope I was talking about before, right?
Exactly.
Your goal is already the same. You're just making it, you're not only hurting your chances of winning, but you're hurting the team's chances of winning by not relying on them and also not supporting other people. So this stuff reminds me to shift to another form of media. It reminds me of the conversation with video games about difficulty levels. It's like, no, you got to play it on this difficulty level, or else it's like it doesn't count. And I'm like, you know what? Like, why am I going through so much trouble? Right? Like, I had a friend who was here's an example. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When they re-released it on Switch, they added a mode called Funky Mode. Right, and then Funky Mode just gives you like extra lives. It makes it so like you can't fall in a pit and stuff like that. Like that game is hard. It's hard, and I understand that part of the fun of hard games is to overcome the challenge. But like, I don't have the time to do that level 100 times to finally get it right. So I was like, no, I'm turning on Funky Mode. and so I use that as a term for when something's easier, you know. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I turned on Funky Mode. And to me, what does that mean? That means lowering a difficulty level. You know what? I don't mind sometimes paying a couple bucks, like in a game. Like I'm already like, I like the game. I'm enjoying myself. It doesn't. What's the problem? You know, like if I'm playing Fortnite, and so like right now there's an Eren Yeager skin. I think it comes out. I'm not sure if it's at the end of the month or if it's already available. And like sometimes for some of these things you gotta grind, you know. Yeah. And it's like it's not even hard. It's just time. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna drop a couple bucks. I like this game, but I don't have that much time, or it's just a little hard for me. So like, what's the big deal? Right? It's like you can pay for stuff, and when it's someone's job, for example, right? Like also it's their job. Like if you don't do that, then they might not get paid. Right? Especially when it's like one-on-one, right? It's like, oh, a kid comes by and is like, oh, want me to mow your lawn for $20? It's like, get out of here, kid. I can do it myself. But now like the kid can't go buy his Fortnite skins because he's right. But just like, I don't know, like the different perspectives, but in video games, I remember thinking more that way of like, oh, I'm not going to pay extra money for something. And I'm like, nah, you know what? That's life though. Like if you have particular resources, your life is a lot easier. And I know we've been talking about, for the most part, like accepting the kindness of your friends and family, perhaps even the kindness of a stranger, right? Like you fell down and you're like, don't touch me. No, it's like, oh, they'll help you up. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. But there's also, I mean, we've only mentioned it briefly, but our therapists, our doctors, like there's some of these things that we cannot handle ourselves. Like if you can afford it and it's hard for you to go to the gym and stuff, like, and you can pay a little extra to have a trainer or somebody to work with you. If you need physical therapy, if you need, like, sometimes you just want to learn something, you just want to get better at a particular thing. There's coaches, right? Like being so stubborn and not being willing, or even worse, like being willing to pay for like singing lessons or an art class or go for a massage, but then not accept the help of your friends, you know, or someone who's giving it to you, right? Like there's that dissonance. For me, it was 100% across the board. I didn't want to pay anybody. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to, because I felt like I was burdening the entire world with my shit. But obviously now, I mean, I have a very different perspective on that. And so yeah, sometimes that costs money. And that adds a whole other layer to it, right? People are like, oh, I'm not going to pay money. I can just do it myself. It's like, you know, like I've joked with you about coming over to my house to help me. Like you saw my house, right? Like,
yeah.
Like you saw, I started sanding the floors. I don't know if you saw that. There's like just a couple spots that are sanded, and then I was like, oh, this sucks. My bedroom actually has like a quarter of the floor has been removed because I need to replace the floors. And then I just stopped. I was like, no, I need to pay somebody for this. And it's going to take a while to save it up, or maybe I'll want to do it later. But like, I'd really like to be able to just pay somebody to do it and do it right and do it better. and me not have to not only spend all that time, but just not go through the trouble. But so there's still a part of me where it's like, I can do it myself.
You'd be surprised how many times those sort of thoughts will come through my head. Like my brain's like, you know what? YouTube teaches people how to do things all the time. Why can't it teach me to do it? Oil change? Pff, child's play. I could do that by myself. Why would I want to pay X amount of dollars for an oil change when it's going to cost me like $20 for the parts, and then I just got to do it myself? Like,
you just do it. Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, but do I really want to do that? Do I really want to invest that time and stress myself out? Because if I mess that up, then it's on me. And also, I'm now without a car. Like, no, I think I'd rather just pay the extra money and have somebody else do it and know that, like, all right, it's going to be done. It's going to be done right. And I don't have to worry about it.
See, at the beginning, we were talking about a character, Izuku Midoriya, Deku. Like, getting to a point where he is going way past his limits, right? Like, he's at an unhealthy level, doing everything independently, and basically hurting himself, right? By and having people offering help. We could say that even at that point, he couldn't do it by himself, and he probably needed help to be able to accomplish his goals and even possibly even just live and survive. But the other part of it is like, you can just accept help even if you don't need it, right? Like, sure, you may be able to do it on your own, like the Donkey Kong example. I mean, I'll eventually get it. I believe that I can.
Yeah, you're gonna get funky?
No. Even without funky mode, I can do it. I can do it. But it may take me many, many, many tries. And so that's not a need, right? But it's like, it's just easier. No? Like, actually, like right now I have some furniture that I was gonna move around. And I was like, let me not be stupid. Because like, I already did this thing. I moved a treadmill down 2 flights of stairs by myself.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Because of everything we've talked about in this episode so far. I could not bring myself to, one, ask for help, and two, I didn't even want to pay somebody. So I have actually paid someone twice on TaskRabbit to help me like hang stuff up. Just because like one was a TV. I just could not, like, the old one was really heavy and it was like, it's in a weird place, and the whole thing, I was like, I can't do this on my, and he couldn't do it on his own either. Right? Like, we had to do, like, we had to carry it between the two of us. And there's a few things like that where I just can't. But then other times I still go and I'm like, oh, I can move this treadmill on my own.
Yeah, I can just move this up and down 2 flights of stairs, no problem.
I know. So now, like, I have this huge stand-up desk over here that I want to move, and at first I was just gonna like, oh, I'm just gonna pick up the whole thing and grab it, and then I was like, no, I should either I ask for help or I need to take this thing apart and just do it right, you know. But there's I don't know, there's still stuff like that. Like, my house is full of examples like that right now of me realizing, right? It's not even like I'm insisting on doing it on my own. It's that I started that way and then realized that's stupid. And so I'm either, you know, I've decided to something just pay a professional to do it, because I'm sick of asking you, since you won't come over to help me.
Trust
paint
me,
or anything like that.
Oh my goodness, here we go again.
To be fair, you haven't offered help.
That's another thing. Like,
only offered excuses.
that's another thing about me, is that I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever, but I don't usually like verbally offer help. I just like, maybe I'll word it in a different way or something, but like, I don't think I all too often actually offer my help anymore. Like, I just kind of I think I just kind of feel that if someone really needed my help, they'll ask me, and they like people that know me know that I'm cool with it. You just gotta ask, and
That's not true.
I'll
That's not
find
true.
I will find a way to make it work if I can. If I can't, that's a different story. Like you said, it's a far drive,
Mhm.
and I'm a busy boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not that I don't want to. It's just that my scheduling and your scheduling are just very conflicting, except for times like right now.
You're just offering excuses.
That's the only thing I can offer, apparently.
um, there's, I don't know. There's something about this. You, what was it that you said that I said that that's not true? You said that people. I just lost my train of thought. You said that people. Oh no, this is bad radio.
Would you like me to help you get
Yes,
your
please.
thoughts
I'm
back on track?
asking. I'm asking for help.
Okay.
That you assume that people don't want help, right? Because if they did, they would ask you. Right?
Exactly.
And so that's not true, right? I know because there are lots of times where I'm like, I could really use help, but I'm not going to ask. But if you offer, I'll say yes, right? But it's like, because then I think that you don't. So I've started doing something in recent years where I make it harder to opt out, right? As the helper, not as the helped, not as the helpee. So I maybe, right? It's like, instead of, if I see somebody, I don't know, you drop something, you're carrying something, right? Instead of saying, hey, like, do you want help with that, or can I help you? You know, it might be more like, I don't know, it depends on the person, you know, in the situation. But there I might just go in like I'm helping you out, right? Like, I'll grab the other side of it, you know? It's like, oh yeah, no, we got this, right? Or if it's something like, if it's verbal, you know, instead of, hey, let me know if you need any help, I'll say, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Or I'll say, I'll be right over if there's anything I can do. Like just point me at where I can help, you know? So it's like, my hope is that with something like that, I can make it very clear that I'm already in, right? Like, there's no transaction. There's no additional step. There's no forms to sign. There's no approval. There's no convincing. It's just, I'm in. I'm here. What can I do? And if they can't think of anything, then maybe I can still find, you know, unless they blatantly are just like, get the fuck out of my face, you know, then, you know, message received loud and clear. But sometimes there's just other stuff that you can do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I don't know, I'm doing this thing and I can't, you know, you can't help there, but maybe I'll go, I don't know, I'll help you wash some dishes or throw out the trash or whatever, right? Like, I'm here to help. However, if that's what I'm here to do, that's what I'm here to do. So, yeah.
You can help me with these Pokemon card scan codes.
So what's the takeaway here?
The takeaway, I think the takeaway is
that you're not going to come to my house and help.
I'm only gonna come over to throw card codes at you,
Okay.
and
that's
about it. Yeah, just slide them in there. No, I think the main takeaway is that learning to and accepting help, whether it's from people in your life, or even from just services like resources and things like that. It's not a bad thing, especially when they're meant for you. Like, people are offering their help or their services to you because they want to help you. That's not bad. And learning to kind of overcome our own views on receiving outside help can really sort of open up a new, fresh perspective on things, and also just gives you a chance to kind of relax for a second, you know? Take a load off your shoulders, take a deep breath, relax, and knowing that you're not doing it alone, or that you don't have to go through the whole process alone or figure it out on your own. You can kind of give yourself a minute, and in giving yourself a minute, you can kind of learn to appreciate the people that do want to be there for you, or be appreciative of the services that are provided to you or that are offered to you, and being able to utilize those so that way you can continue to develop yourself in a way that you want to, rather than feeling like you have to take on the entire world on your own and close yourself off.
Yeah. I'll give one more example. There's a game called Ni no Kuni. I haven't talked about it in a while. In this game, you deal with emotions. So there's like these emotional energies. And as the main character, you will find people who are low on courage, or low on love, or low on, I forgot all the other ones, but there's like 7 total. So to help them, what you do is that you find someone else who has an abundance of that. And then you ask them, and they're able to give you like some of their courage energy, or their love energy, or their whatever energy. And then you put that in a bottle, and then you bring it to the person who is low on that. Mm-hmm. I've talked about this game many times, but I never thought of it in, maybe I have, but I think it applies, which is that if somebody's offering to help, that may mean that they're in a position to help. Like, it's unhealthy to give something that you do not have, right? Like, if you're broke and you're going and giving people money, you're just going to be more broke. But if you have, expendable income and you have extra money, it feels good to help somebody else out. And maybe right now, you, your clients, your friends, your students may not be in a position where they have an abundance of time, energy, love, caring, to share with others. But the people who are willing to help, who are offering, assume good intentions, assume that they have something to give. And maybe one day when you have a little extra and you have something to give, you can pay that forward and do that same for other people. I've learned from myself that where I have to set boundaries is when I identify that I have no more to give. And with other people, I've also learned that I can't expect them to do things that they're not capable of, to give me things that they don't have to give. So, good topic.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
Next time we'll talk about accepting praise.
Yeah, no thanks. I'm gonna opt out of that episode.
Yeah. Why are Link and Lara not here?
Interesting.
How might they opt out of this one? Oh, thank you for the convo, Mark. Thank you, listeners, for joining us on this episode of GT Radio. If you want to join the discussion, check out the links in the show notes to all of our community spaces. For more Geek Therapy, visit geektherapy.org. Remember to geek out and do good. And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Geek Therapy is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to making the world a better place through geek culture. To learn more